coming from beneath the egg, they realize there's a nest, and little bitty versions of the monster come scurrying out. Maybe some of them scurry toward the player characters and some scurry away. Maybe these little things do barely any damage. But the characters are just being able to hack them, blow them up. However, they realize that not only are they incredibly easy to kill, when we do destroy them, it's so horrible and traumatic. The little things are crying, writhing, and it feels, and you almost make it feel like the group is doing a terrible thing by exterminating these little baby versions of the creature, even though they're coming in to attack. This adds a whole nother level of moral complexity to it, right? Hello friends, welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we're going to talk about a very specific topic that recently came up in the GM Philosophy Discord. I got to shout out to Dirty Socks for this one because I think he's the one who started this conversation. Stop making fights harder. Make them matter. Give them actual stakes instead of just raising monster HP and damage output. I want to talk about this. This is going to be very freeform. I mean, this is going to be raw one, guys, so stick with me. This is probably not going to be one of my more polished videos because I just wanted to weigh in on this in a very conversational way. This is the channel where we empower game masters to run better games. So if that sounds like the mission you're on, you are in the right place. Here's what I think when I think about this topic. I think you're right. Here's the problem with grind fast fights or big slug fests or games that turn into a long, drawn out, just, hack and slash, rolling dice and counting damage fest. They can get really boring. While you're waiting for your friends to take their turns, while you're waiting for the other players, you can actually get really bored. Your players can get really bored. I mean, as the GM, you're not probably going to get bored, but your players are probably going to get bored. Your players are going to be sitting there waiting maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. It depends on what level you are and on how fast your group is. We all know that there are some players out there who take 20-minute combat turns. I hope this isn't the case for your table. If so, you might want to have a little talk with those players. Tell them to have a little flowchart ready for their turns. But here's what I want to say about this. No matter how much time comes between turns in your game, there's going to be a gap where people are going to take their turn and they're going to have to kind of wait. Unless something else is going on that gets their attention. Something else engages them between. Something else makes them think. What can we do to solve this? Okay. Now, combat can be made up of many dimensions. There is the combat itself. There's the damage output. There's the damage they're taking, right? There's the rolling to hit. There's the rolling damage. There's the managing spell effects. There's the rolling saving throws. Okay, these are the mechanics of combat. There's movement, right? Now, let's take it another level deeper. Let's talk about the emotional stakes. If you got a D&D party together and they all created characters and all you did was sit down and say, roll initiative. And they're like, what? What's going on? We don't know the story. How are we? And then the GM is like, it doesn't matter. We're doing combat. And then everyone sat down and they just rolled to hit and there's just a monster and it was just a technical combat. Does that sound fun? No, it would probably be kind of boring. Why? Because there's no story in there. The whole point of a TTRPG and why you would do that instead of playing some kind of war game or video game, the whole point of it is the storytelling element, the role play element. And you can take this in many different directions into many different extremes, but it's basically a game conceptualized within the group mentality at the table in the intellectual, creative space of the human minds sitting at that table, imagining the world and the story taking place. Part of this is what gives it its magic. So when you are fighting and doing combat, generally there are storyline stakes. So this is another layer. You have storyline stakes on top of that. And this is really good, right? If you have a reason to fight this creature, it's like this creature's been terrorizing the local village. These little children you talk to, their mother was taken by the creature and they were crying and very upset. Little Timmy was so sad when he saw his mother drug into the woods in a grisly fashion, blood trailing behind, right? He saw fangs and just this creature glaring at him while the creature took bites out of mommy, right? He recounts the story. This raises the emotional stakes. And then it makes the players maybe think, oh my God, I'm going to kill this monster. So they get their weapons and their spells and they go after him and they get to his lair and they're going to fight him. This raises the stakes. So we have one layer, which is just the mechanics of combat. And then we have another layer, which is storyline layer. And we even have started building another layer above that, which is actual emotional stakes. So we have combat mechanics, then we have story stakes, then we have emotional stakes. For emotional stakes, it has to be made personal. So for some reason, the characters have to really care about it. And this can be done like secondhand through like Timmy retelling the grisly story, and maybe it'll appeal to the heartstrings of one of the characters, or maybe the creature attacks the party and then they're able to fend it off, but only after it has put someone down or only after it made them really mad, right? Maybe it's been harassing them, teasing them. Maybe it's been sending its minions after them and they know it. And it's just been a source of frustration or danger or fear or whatever it is. So now they have personal stakes. They're emotionally invested. So this is the next layer. This is probably the most powerful layer you can engage. Okay. This is very, very important. Combat that involves more than just swing sword, do damage is going to be way better in terms of keeping everyone engaged. Everyone is going to be watching with bated breath, or at least a lot more interest if there are emotional and storyline stakes. However, we can also introduce what I would call encounter level stakes. So this is where you do things during the encounter that raise the stakes even more. So let's say that this party interviewed the town. They found out there's a creature killing people. They talked to little Timmy. Little Timmy had his mother drug off. Maybe this is storyline stakes, and maybe it tugs a little at the heartstrings, but we don't quite have emotional stakes. Then, when the players spend the night at the tavern that night, they wake up to a roar, something crashing through literally the wall into their room. Jaws open, creature lashing out at them, right? They haven't had time to have a rest. They haven't had time to put their gear on. It comes in and slashes them up, puts a couple of them down, and then as soon as they start to get a little traction, it leaves and retreats. So it comes in, it does a bunch of damage. Maybe it even harms or puts down one of the friendly NPCs, almost kills them, or maybe even it drags them off, right? There could be a lot of different ways to do this. Maybe it drags off an animal companion, right? Maybe it kills one of their familiars, right? So in any case, we're trying to make it personal, and then we get emotional stakes. Now the players aren't just looking for combat and loot and XP. They're also looking toward this as a story component, and they're just mad. They want to kill this thing. This thing has hurt their feelings. It has hurt their friends. This thing has angered them. This cheeky monster came in and ambushed them while they were sleeping. Now they're out for blood. So now we have all three of these going, right? But then they get to the cave. They gear up and they go stalking the creature. They get to its lair and they go in there to get it. Now the creature is at its peak. It has lair actions. And you think to yourself, how can I make this? How can I make the stakes even bigger? Well, one thing you might think is I have to make this a really hard encounter. So you boost the HP and you boost the damage output because when you ran your tests earlier, you found out they may kill it easier. Now you're making it harder, raising the stakes. No, be careful. You do want it to be good, powerful combat, powerful monster. But if that's the only thing you do to raise the stakes, then this is going to mess with your full ability to really engage your players emotionally. Okay. So we want to add encounter level stakes instead of just boosting all stats. Boost stats to make it challenging, but we need to add encounter level stakes. So what I mean by that is when they come into the thing, maybe they come up to the creature, but then you throw in something that takes attention away. The creature's in here, they catch it off guard, but then they realize in the middle of the lair, there's a big leathery egg that's pulsating. What is this? Good question. Now we've added something extra to it, right? We've added an unknown variable. What is going on with this egg? And then you have the creature act a certain kind of way. When they come in, the creature lunges at them, and you see the creature glancing at the egg, putting itself between the closest one and the egg and fighting. And maybe they're going to be tempted to roll maybe insight, maybe nature check, and you're going to reveal to them it seems to be maternally defending this egg. Like it seems like it is in a bit of a panic that there are strangers maybe near this egg. It could be its offspring. It could be something, blah, 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 right? So now we've added an extra encounter level bit of stakes, causing players to need to make some choices about how they want to deal with this. Are they going to destroy the egg? Should they mess with the egg, right? Maybe the egg could be used as a mechanism because if they threaten it, it might draw the monster away. So it could be like a form of aggro, right? Like drawing aggro. So we have this new thing, but then we have a different thing. Maybe coming from beneath the egg, they realize there's a nest. And little bitty versions of the monster come scurrying out. Maybe some of them scurry toward the player characters and some scurry away. Maybe these little things do barely any damage. But the characters are just being able to hack them, blow them up. However, they realize that not only are they incredibly easy to kill, when you do destroy them, it's so horrible and traumatic. The little things are crying, writhing, and it feels, and you almost make it feel like the group is doing a terrible thing by exterminating these little baby versions of the creature, even though they're coming in to attack. This adds a whole nother level of moral complexity to it, right? And then you can even go further than that. You could make it to where some of the little creatures, when they approach the player characters, they begin acting in such a way that it almost seems like they're trying to submit and surrender, right? But then when they hear the mother take damage, they get up and squeal and cry, and then they attack. And it seems like, when the mother gets attacked, they go into a frenzy. But then when the mother's already finished, or when the mother's taking their turn, these creatures all kind of start to submit because the mother isn't taking damage now, right? So you make this kind of playing. You give them checks, and these are all checks. These kind of investigative type, observational checks. These can be things that are done between combat rounds, right? So players who are not, it's not their combat turn, they could be making these checks. This could give them something to do while the attacking player is rolling their damage or rolling to hit, right? So in this way, you can really raise the stakes of combat, make it more interesting, and also, add some in-between stuff that they get for free, but you've already made this encounter so much more like interesting and evocative because of the emotional layering of it. I love running games that have emotional resonance. I think that emotional layering and emotional resonance is key. And I actually have published a book all about this. Grab my book, The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery. I talk all about how I do this. 24 years of gaming wisdom packed into 50 pages. Grab it right now for a price, basically about the price of an expensive cup of coffee. I believe that when we run emotionally resonant games, we're going to really engage our players, get them interested in the story, get them interested in the connections they're making in the game, and they're going to keep wanting to come back. That's my whole thesis, right? I also run paid games and start playing. If you want to play one of my games, have little monsters trying to get you to save them when their mother is getting slaughtered by your angry compatriots and things like that, which happen all the time in my games. Click on the Start Playing link in my description, join one of my games. Who knows, we may be a great fit. Maybe you would enjoy playing with me. So give it a try. So thank you for coming to my talk. I appreciate you. Roll some D100s for me at your next game, friends. I'll see you awesome people on the next one.